The Dallas Cowboys enter the biggest week of their season with everything on the line. Their playoff hopes sit at a fragile 10%, but the equation is simple: beat the Eagles, and that number rises to 17%. Lose, and it collapses to just 4%. That pressure has shaped every conversation inside the Star this week. Coaches, players, and even front office staff understand the consequences. This matchup isn't just a rivalry game, it is the season's turning point, the moment that decides whether Dallas keeps fighting or quietly fades into the shadows. At the heart of today's Cowboys talk is free agency, especially the debate between signing Stefan Gilmore or Eddie Jackson. Gilmore represents experience, stability, and leadership at cornerback, a position where the Cowboys have been inconsistent without Trevon Diggs. Meanwhile, Eddie Jackson brings range and playmaking at safety, an area where Dallas has struggled with depth and discipline this year. Adding either veteran would immediately help the secondary, especially against elite offenses like Philadelphia and San Francisco. The question is whether the front office still believes in pushing this year or shifting resources toward long-term roster building. Another major topic is the future of the Cowboys' Big Three, at defensive tackle: Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, and Osa Odighizuwa. They've completely transformed the middle of the defense and given Dallas something it has lacked for years: interior dominance. But keeping all three beyond this season will be extremely difficult. Quinnen Williams is the centerpiece, a true superstar with massive contract demands. Kenny Clark remains one of the most reliable interior linemen in the league, and Osa is entering the prime of his career. Dallas will either have to restructure, extend, or cut other players to maintain this core. It is possible, but the financial gymnastics would be intense. As the Cowboys approach the Eagles game, Dak Prescott finds himself at another crosser. His past performances against Philadelphia have been strong, even if the exact stats being shared online aren't fully accurate. What matters is that Dak understands this defense better than most quarterbacks. He knows how to attack their coverages and where the weaknesses lie. But this time, his supporting cast must elevate with him. The Cowboys cannot afford slow starts, stalled drives, or short yardage failures. Brian Schottenheimer has been criticized for abandoning the run in crucial moments, and fans want to see more physical downhill plays, especially against an Eagles front that can be moved if challenged aggressively. The mailbag also brings up questions about roster decisions. Fans are wondering what the future holds for players like Trevon Diggs, Terrence Steele, and Kenneth Murray. Diggs is too talented to move unless money forces an unexpected situation, but Steele and Murray could be expendable depending on cap space and draft needs. There's also concern about Jaden Blue, who hasn't seen much action. The Cowboys still view him as a developmental player, not forgotten, just not ready for major snaps in a tight playoff race. Draft discussions are heating up as well. Jeremiah Love is being mentioned as a first-round target at running back, bringing explosiveness and versatility that the current RB room lacks. Carnell Tate, the wide receiver from Ohio State, is another fan favorite: polished route runner, smooth athlete, and a long-term weapon opposite CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys could also target offensive line depth or another cornerback depending on how the roster shakes out. And finally, the biggest fan question of the day: can the Cowboys upset the Eagles? Yes, they can, but it will require discipline, execution, and minimal mistakes. The Eagles have weaknesses in coverage, miscommunication in the secondary, and linebackers who struggle in space. Dallas must attack those areas relentlessly. If the Cowboys play clean football, force too defensive, the Dallas Cowboys step into their most crucial week of the entire season, sitting at a razor-thin 10% chance to make the playoffs. Everything now hinges on one game: beat the Eagles, and the number jumps to 17%, lose, and it collapses to just 4%. Inside the Star, the message is simple: this is a survival game. Every coach, every player, and every staff member knows the stakes. And that urgency is exactly why the Cowboys are back in heavy discussions about bringing in key veterans, especially Stefan Gilmore, whose absence has been deeply felt in the secondary. Gilmore remains one of the smartest and most technically sound corners in the league. His ability to anticipate routes, communicate adjustments pre-snap, and stabilize younger corners makes him unique. Since the Cowboys lost key defensive backs this season, the secondary has lacked veteran control. Gilmore solves that instantly. He knows Dan Quinn's language, he knows the system, and he knows the locker room. Many inside the organization believe that reuniting with Gilmore could be the fastest way to patch the coverage breakdowns that have cost Dallas big plays in critical moments. At the same time, the Cowboys are also evaluating Eddie Jackson, but the comparison highlights why Gilmore remains such an attractive option. Jackson brings range at safety, yes, but Gilmore brings command. Jackson can create turnovers, but Gilmore prevents the kinds of mistakes that lead to desperation. And if the Cowboys enter the Eagles' game undermanned at corner, the need for a steady veteran presence becomes even more obvious. For a team trying to salvage playoff hopes, Gilmore represents both immediate help and a proven voice the defense respects. The Dallas Cowboys enter the biggest week of their season with everything on the line. Their playoff hopes sit at a fragile 10%, but the equation is simple: beat the Eagles, and that number rises to 17%. Lose, and it collapses to just 4%. That pressure has shaped every conversation inside the Star this week. Open-minded, but they won't force a signing there either. As we move deeper into the show, we shift back to the broader outlook of this team. The Cowboys are still fighting for postseason positioning, but every week feels like a survival test. They need Diggs back, but they also need discipline from their young stars, consistency in the running game, stability on the offensive line, and a clear long-term plan for how this roster will look in December and January. The coaching staff knows that this year isn't simply about week-to-week survival. It's about defining an identity that can withstand adversity. Injuries have challenged them. Rumors have challenged them. Chemistry has been tested. But this team still has enough talent to stay in the hunt. What they need now is clarity. Clarity on who returns from IR. Clarity on who contributes immediately. Clarity on whether the offense can find its balance, and clarity on whether the defense can survive long enough to get its stars back healthy. As we close the first hour and move into the second, the focus shifts toward projections. What does the Cowboys' defensive structure look like if Diggs returns in Week 13 versus Week 15? How does the offense change if Pickens and Lamb synergize instead of clash? What adjustments could Mike McCarthy and the staff implement to reduce sideline tension and boost execution? And which two players should realistically receive those final IR return designations? At this stage, Peyton Turner seems like a prime candidate because of the defensive depth concerns. Josh Butler could help the secondary stabilize even before Diggs comes back. Maffa offers running back insurance. Keegan and Cornelius help the offensive line. Thomas adds safety depth. Sanborn boosts linebacker rotation. Each decision affects the next month. All of these moving parts make this one of the most unpredictable stretches of the Cowboys season. Every storyline connects, every decision carries weight, and the next few weeks suddenly looked like it had grown a new spine, heavier, nastier,